What's up, family? It's Caden again with Black Finance, and today I want to talk to you about Dave Ramsey baby step number 2. That's 4. Number 2, and the adjustments that my wife and I made to it in order to fit our lifestyle. Personal finance is personal, and so you really have to take into consideration the advice that people are telling you. So it may be good advice, but you really have to eat the meat and spit out the bones. Alright, so we'll be jumping right into that after this. Okay, so I know there are a lot of Dave Ramsey faithfuls out there, and I would say, I watch just about everything he puts out myself. And so people do not like you changing the baby steps. So I'm sure I may get a few dislikes. My first dislike for changing the baby step. But it is what it is. Personal finance, again, is personal. And so baby step number 2 entails paying off all of your debts, except for your house. So that means credit cards, cars, whatever debt you have, student loans. In baby step number 2, you pay it off completely. And one of the methods, and the method, I should say, that Dave Ramsey uses or prescribes in order to pay off your debt is the debt snowball method. And that method entails listing your debts from lowest balance all the way to the highest balance, and then paying off the lowest balance first, irrespective of the interest rates. I talk about in another video the difference between the debt snowball and the debt avalanche, where the debt avalanche you do it by interest rates. The debt snowball, which is also the method that I advocate for, is listing them from the lowest amount to the highest amount and paying them off, just knocking them off one by one by one. And I really do think it gives you a lot of momentum. And so my wife and I pretty much have been able to pay off all of our debt more or less using the debt snowball. And I talked about how we kind of use both methods in another video, but whatever, that's there. The other thing that you really need to do when doing baby step number 2 is create a budget. And what I've found is budgeting helps you to be disciplined. So I have $100 allocated to eating out every month. I have $200 allocated to eating out every month. And when that budget is done, you can easily say to your friends, I have no money to eat out. And honestly, that's what consumes a lot of money in your budget. Well, a lot of people's money is that when people ask you to do things, and things always come up. But when you have a budget, you can say, I have no money in the budget for that. It's crazy how much peer pressure and keeping up with the Joneses is what caused people to be poor. And it may be an excuse, but I love using my budget as an excuse and say, oh, that's not in my budget. Sorry, I can't do it. Maybe next month, give me a month notice and maybe I'll put it in my next month's budget. And so I talk about in another video how we create a budget for an entire year, but we do adjust them as things come up. But you're not just gonna throw something us in the middle of the month and expect us to readjust our budget. Not gonna happen. Budgeting teaches you how to be disciplined, and discipline helps you to build wealth. It's true, it's crazy, but it's true. Personal finance and building wealth, like Dave likes to say, is 80% behavior and 20% head knowledge. Yes, you do need the information, but it's more about your behavior than the knowledge. And so, like I mentioned, we were able to pay off $120,000 of debts in less than 2 years. And that was the span of our marriage at that time. We had a little bit of debt that we were targeting before our marriage, but we absolutely crushed it after we got married. Using the Dave Ramsey, or I'll say his methods, the baby steps, and other methods. We looked at a lot of personal financial videos. We read a lot of books on the subject. People give different advice, but this particular video and series is just about Dave Ramsey baby steps. So I'll give some of those other recommendations and other advice at another time. So like I mentioned, we did make changes to the baby step, just about every single one of the steps, and it was to fit our lifestyle. So one of the things that we changed with baby step number 2 is that you're supposed to stop all investing when you're doing baby step number 2. And so for us, we didn't think it was necessary. We had our plan. We knew when we were going to get out of debt. We budgeted towards that. We aggressively paid off our debt towards that. But we also wanted to get the company match and wanted to put a little aside, even slowly building our emergency fund. We weren't aggressively building our emergency fund. So I talked about in the first video how before really going aggressive in baby step number 2, we did 1 month's rent, which was a little more than the recommended amount. And so for this one, we still invested into our 401k to get the company match and also put a little bit aside in our emergency fund. Not a lot, but we're professionals in Boston. We make decent amount of money. And so we felt like we had the room in our budget to both pay off our debt aggressively and do that. To be quite honest with you, and this may sound a little arrogant, but I think most people should probably stick to just doing one, especially if you're single. Whether you're a guy or girl, if you're single, it may be best just to stick to paying off one. So just aggressively getting out of debt. But that's if you can put all your effort towards that. If you know you're not disciplined enough where you're willing to live on beans and rice, like Dave Ramsey liked to say, then it maybe makes sense for you to at least get the company match and still be aggressive with it. Like I said, personal finance is personal, and we all kind of have to make the best decision we can based on who we are as a person and how we want to live our lives. The other thing that we did that was slightly different is that we still went on vacations. I know I always thought about calling into Dave Ramsey and asking him, hey Dave, should we go on this vacation? But I already know his answer. His answer will be no, you're broke. Until you pay off your debt, you're broke, so you can't go on vacation. And I'm married, so being in debt is a big deal, but I need to make sure that my wife is happy. And so one of the things that I know she loved doing is going on vacations. And so we made that a priority, even honestly over paying off debt. And like I said, I honestly think we had room in our budget for it, and we made sure that we weren't doing it with credit cards. Well, that's our story. So as you can see, we adjusted it, baby step number 2, a lot to fit our lifestyle. We knew that it would only take us about 2 years to pay off our $120,000 of debt that we had remaining at that time, and we were comfortable with that plan, that strategy. So we had our own strategy, we had our own plan, but I do think Dave Ramsey Baby Step is a great way or a great benchmark to shape your plan. Like I said, if you can do it like Dave recommends, do it. That's like the best thing possible to get out of debt quickly. But if that's not your prime objective, which it isn't for a lot of people, fortunately or unfortunately, make sure you stick to your budget within baby step number 2. I think that's important. So, and I think, another thing that I will recommend people do, if you know how much debt you have, see how long you're willing to stay in debt for. And it sounds kind of crazy, but I'll say budget to the point, if in the next 3 years you can pay off your debt, so create a budget for the next 3 years. And yes, you're gonna make adjustments to it, but at the very least, you'll know exactly how much you will have to pay towards your debt. That's one of the things that I would say is super important. Make sure you know how much you have to pay towards your debt. Okay, y'all, so that's baby step number 2, paying off all of your debt except for your home. And, if you're on that step, which a lot of people are, I wish you all the best luck. If anybody have any advice or recommendations, please throw it in the subject lines. If you made changes to Dave Ramsey Baby Steps, throw that in the comments. If you're mad that I'm make changes to Dave Ramsey Baby Step, throw those in those comments. If you think that we didn't follow the baby steps or are not following the baby steps because we made changes to it, feel free to throw those in the comments too. Both likes and dislikes add to YouTube algorithm. So however you feel about this video, I encourage you to share it. Alrighty then, so as I always say, remember, live your best life, and I love you.